Hi,
Hi.
everyone joining us. Good to see you. Right, to everyone joining us, I am Andiswa Kwaku from the Momentum Velocity Club. Thank you very much for joining us. Well done and congratulations to you as well, because you are officially made history and you are part of the first of many Momentum Velocity Club live webinars. Joining me today is no stranger. You must have seen him in the podcast as well as the videos that we had earlier on. And you must have had a look. If you haven't, his name is Buhle Dlamini, and don't be fooled by the handsome face and the youthfulness. He's an award-winning entrepreneur, a futurist, and an author. And he's very passionate about helping people understand tomorrow today, as well as helping them unleash their greatness. Welcome to the show, Buhle. Good to have you back, and I'm sure it already feels like home.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Andiswa. And thank you for having me again. And welcome to all our friends that are joining us on this session. And it's always great to be talking to my friends in South Africa and to our people. And as I shared last time, I am based in Canada. So yes, I do feel a little bit homesick. I wish I had, maybe a grape tizer with me and some of the good South African goods that we miss when we're over here.
You're helping us appreciate the things that we have that we
Oh,
maybe take
absolutely.
for granted. With the way things are, getting an appetizer might just be as difficult for us as well. Thank you, everyone. Please just get involved on the chat box. Send your comments. Again, you're welcome. Tell us where you're from, where you're coming from, so we can see who's joining us today. Buhle, we all saw a bit of your podcast and some of us not, but I'm just going to get straight into it. One of the sentiments that stuck out for me in the podcast is your quote by John Buchan, which was basically about the task of leadership not being to embed greatness in people, but rather to unleash it. Because we all have it in us to be great. I think that was quite powerful, specifically because at Velocity Club, we are in the business of empowering young professionals, partnering with them, and making sure that they define their success as well as try and work towards it. So I want us to kickstart with you speaking to us a bit about what does that mean for myself as an individual? How am I great, if at all I do believe that I'm great? And how do I go about actually pursuing that success and excellence?
Thank you, Andy. So that's a great way to start. And as I shared last week about the importance of unleashing your greatness, that we all have greatness inside of us, but that many of us, we don't actually do the work of turning that greatness or that greatness potential into performance. And I always start by telling people that I grew up in rural KwaZulu-Natal in a place called Wahlabisa, and that I was raised by my grandmother, Umandla Kumalo. And the reason I tell that is because I really believe that it's important for people to realize that it's not your background that counts, that it's not where you come from that counts, that it's what's in you that counts. And so that's a starting point. And so when we're talking about unleashing your greatness, I have 5 keys that I've used in my life and that I believe that anybody who wants to unleash their greatness can use in their lives. And so greatness is about understanding that all of us have the potential to be the best that we can be. It's not about trying to be like someone else, but it's really about getting in touch with the true potential that you have inside of you. And then I often speak about a Coke can, when you take a Coke can and you shake it up and then you release. That's what John Barkin was talking about. He was talking about the fact that we all have greatness inside of us. And so what are the 5 keys then? The first key that I spoke about and that I often speak about is that you need to be who you be. And so when we talk about be who you be, we're really talking about the fact that if you're going to unleash your greatness, you need to embrace who you are. And I know people are always saying that's messed up. Be who you be. That's not good English. But I love this phrase because it captures something. And I often tell the story that I got this phrase when I was in the States. So when I travel in the States, I often hang out with African Americans, and they don't say "be all you can be" or "be what you can be." They say "be who you be, man." You know, they put a twist on things. And what I love about that is that Be Who You Be really captures the two sentiments. One, if you want to unleash your greatness, you need to embrace who you are. You need to embrace who you are, but don't stop there. You need to also go on to embrace who you can be. So the first key to unleashing your greatness is really finding your distinction, that thing which sets you apart from everybody else, and then using that to the greatest value. And so it's about discovering your talents. It's about discovering what is it that you can do that others can't do. And so it's about setting yourself apart. So that's the first key, and this one that I speak about. And then the second key that we touched on the last time as well is about pursuing excellence. And when you think about it, if you are going to unleash your greatness, good enough is not good enough. I really love this concept because I think, especially as we find ourselves in this current crisis, what's going to happen for many of us is that if we're coasting along, that's no longer going to cut it if we want to remain in the game. The competition is going to be stiffer than ever before. As opportunities shrink, it's only those who stand out, only those who pursue excellence, only those who go beyond sort of like good enough. And so I say to you, if you want to unleash your greatness, good enough is not good enough anymore. And so those are the first two keys to unleashing your greatness.
Thank you, Buhle. Be who you be. That's something else that I think stuck out, and I'm seeing it in the comments as well, that people absolutely love it. I think it's comforting to know that we can actually find the solutions within ourselves. That we're able and very capable to be the greatest we can be. So the tools are available. Again, to everybody commenting, you can post your questions. I see they've started coming up. Post your questions and comments as we go along, and I'll make sure that I put it in. I do have a few for you, Buhle, that have been coming through across the week that I will initially ask you. And a lot has happened. We're living in an ever-changing world where we are first faced with different scenarios and different circumstances. And we want to kick off by asking, what are some of the things that you have now had to change or rethink as the development phases come up of lockdown and the different elements that are affected by it? What have you personally had to rethink or readjust in your life or even in the way you work?
Excellent. I see Emmanuel has also just asked another question there about greatness in some areas like your talent, but not commercially marketable or sought after. I think that's a really great question, just tying in terms of what I was just talking about. And I'll get back to your question just now. But I would say that it's always important. It's always important to take what you already have and then position it in a way that is marketable. And so it's key for us to not only excel in our talents and in our gifts, but also to find a way to connect that with the market, with how that can actually make us successful. But I think in terms of your question, Andiswa, I would say this. Definitely a lot has changed just over the last few weeks. And the fact that I'm talking to you this way is one of the changes that has taken place. I think for me and for many others, what we do is not going to change. So what I do, which is helping people unleash their greatness, which is helping people to understand the changes in order to own and create their future, has not changed. But what has changed is how I do it. Typically, before this crisis, I would be getting on the plane, traveling to different parts of the world and standing in front of audiences and delivering my messages and challenging people and workshopping and facilitating. And now I have to do it in this way. But I'm not the only one. We all are having to change the way that we do things. So there is a mental shift that has to take place. Remember that the way that you add value may not change. So your value add is still the same, but how you do that has to fundamentally change. And you have to move fast in order to make sure that you're not caught or left behind.
I completely agree with you. And Cascade has asked if we're going to touch on the other values. We definitely get to them, but we first want to just allow people to get their questions across so that we get them answered and get the conversation going. And also, Cascade, Buhle actually goes into depth about the 5 key points that he's talking about in the podcast, which is also available for you to watch. The second question, Buhle, is from Lazola that I'm going to pick up from the crowd.
Mhm.
She says that we come from different environments and sometimes we're not fortunate enough to build what is called social networking or being in the right circles, for example. How do you suppose we would do this in the current COVID environment with bearing in mind the lockdown that is currently going on?
That's an excellent question, Lazola. And I think it's about realizing first that yes, the world has changed, so we've got to do things differently. So there's no longer going to be, those networking sessions with sundowners and the beautiful, sunshine and connecting with people and handshakes and all of that. All of that is going out of the window. So we are really being pushed into the space that maybe some of us have taken for granted up until now. Things like using the online platforms like LinkedIn. I cannot stress the importance of using this platform the right way. Many of us are on LinkedIn, but most of us have just used LinkedIn as a glorified online CV and nothing more than that. But actually, this is a platform for increasing that social capital. This is a platform for you to connect with people. And so this is what I'll challenge you to do. So instead of just using LinkedIn to connect with people that you're interested in and then don't engage, I'll challenge you to take it a step further. Connect with people on LinkedIn, but then go the next step of engaging. So once you develop a rapport with somebody, how do you do that? You do that by following what they're doing. You do that by commenting on the things that they're engaged with. And then you do that by asking, questions and being really interesting and interested. But also we can sign up for interesting webinars like this one. So I'm glad that you're here and joining this. And again, the Velocity Club itself is one way that we're able to do this and bring about a connection with different people. So use this. So sign up for webinars, but don't just connect with Andiswa and Buhle, the speaker and the host. Connect with other people, but also share links with people in that way. So we can use the online platforms to do this.
Very interesting, also insightful. Rihan is asking then, so now you've initiated these types of relationships and you're now in these networks. How do you maintain them? What are best practices? We do understand that this is a more professional environment. Perhaps she's wondering, I don't want to be too much or too forward running. So what is the right thing to do and how do I maintain this relationship?
That's a great question. So, we deal with people that we like or people that we respect. That's the way that business works. That's the way that the world works. And so, our values, which is the third key that I speak about. If you want to unleash your greatness, you need to live your values. And so when I talk about living your values, I talk about the fact that your values are those things that you don't compromise on. So your values are those things that you live by, the standards that you set for yourself and that you live by. And people will see your values in the way that you engage. I often speak about my interactions with Mr. Nelson Mandela and the huge impact that has had in my life. Here you have an international icon, and whenever he connected with people, always made them feel like they were the most important person, and that was his value. It came through, and so we followed and we listened to Nelson Mandela because he was a man of principle. I challenge you to be the same. So people will see your values in the way that you comment. People will see your values in the way that you engage on these online platforms. Let your values come through in the articles that you write. I often see that a lot of people don't post anything when they're on these platforms. They just follow what other people are doing. Share interesting things that you are seeing. If you read a great article that aligns with who you are, with the value that you want to project, or with the way that you want people to see you, put it on the platform and then engage people that like it, engage people that ask, engage people that comment, but also go then a step further. Build rapport before you come up with a big ask, you know. So people often use these platforms as a way to speed date their way into someone's life. You're not going to be able to do that. If you want to be in Buhle's life, for example, the best way to do that is to engage with Buhle on an ongoing basis over time. Comment on what Buhle is saying, like what Buhle is saying, ask questions, prod, and all of those are all good things. And then when the opportunity comes for you to ask Buhle something, or you have a question that you say, Buhle, I have a presentation coming up. I'm just using that as an example. I have a presentation that is coming up that is very important, and I know that you are an expert in this area. What can I do? I'm so nervous. I've dealt with so many people in this, and I love people who are like that, who ask a specific question and that I can give a specific answer and I can walk them through things. So do that, build rapport with people, and then when the time is right, when you've created this connection, you can then ask, and that can lead to mentorship and other things. Yeah, I get excited.
Yeah, you get very excited, and rightfully so, definitely. I think we're getting a lot of comments around networking, and I love the fact that you've gone into detail about it in terms of what people should do to start, and the fact that it's a relationship, like you said, and it goes two ways. It needs to be nurtured as such. I think our audience is definitely saying that from a professional point of view, they see a new normal ahead. I think that's not debatable. It's clear and evident. And that's why everybody's prepping themselves to start getting ready. And what are some of the things that I need to start putting in place in order to actually be ready for this new normal ahead? Now, Buhle, to shift you. Now, that was the professional perspective. Now, the questions that are coming up is, what do you see changing in industries? What do you see changing in technologies? So we are professionals, but we belong to companies. Most of us are working for specific companies or even running our own businesses or starting to run businesses. So what are the shifts and changes that you see happening in that environment?
I think COVID-19 is really one of those events that is going to fundamentally change the way that we work going forward. We've been speaking about this as futurists. We've been speaking to companies about disruption and saying to people, you need to get ready for disruption. Some of the things that we've spoken about for years have seen and sounded like science fiction. A lot of the time when we spoke to people, and I used to have a slide, and I still have the slide that speaks about the next 15 years. And it was Bill Gates who said this in 2015. He said, there'll be more changes in the next 15 years than in the last 50 years. So I would like to say there are three things that we need to think about in terms of the shifts in our careers and in the way that we work. The first thing is an increase on reliance on technology. And what am I talking about there? I'm talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about the Internet of Things, and I'm talking about robotics. I'm not going to delve into what these things are. You can do that on your own if you haven't done that already. But safe to say that artificial intelligence has already been taking more and more human functions, and that's only going to increase. Robotics, for example, right now across the world, you are finding that more and more companies are saying, well, robots can do this job even inside a factory. You are finding that moving things from one part of the factory to another part does not require any human interaction at all. So those are some of the things that are going to change. The second thing is physical distancing. Physical distancing is here to stay. Estimations are talking about 12 to 18 months before we have the vaccine. So the reality is that even though some of us are looking forward to tomorrow, the truth of the matter is you are not going back to normal, or you are going back to the new normal. So physical distancing, so that means that there's going to be more remote work. And so you've got to get ready for that. And then the third thing is that there's going to be limited opportunities in some of the traditional sectors and traditional industries. We're going to see a huge shift. Some of these industries are going to slow down, and some of them have already collapsed. You you talk to anybody in the travel industry, they will tell you that this is a huge challenge. Obviously, it will pick up again in the future, but not in the same way. So those are the three things that I'm seeing already that are changing in the way that we do things.
Thank you, Buhle. I love that you are so enthusiastic and expressive. And there's a comment on the side that says that your excitement is as contagious as the corona. So we're clearly feeling it on our side. Yes, in a definite positive way. And I think that it's interesting times and it's trying times. And I love that you have a very opportunity view of seeing things and seeing where we can unpack and where we can improve and also develop as people. Another question that seems to be popping up more than once is one of small businesses. We know that these are tough times and some people had already started, but were very young in their development and they hadn't really progressed to a point where they are strong enough to weather the storm as it may. And the question is that for young entrepreneurs still starting out in their businesses, where's their thinking? What should they be thinking about? And what are some of the implications? Should I go for it? Should I not? And if I do, what should I be considering? And in that same breath, there's also a question about digital platforms. If I'm a young entrepreneur, and I've just entered the industry, what should I leverage on? I know you're an entrepreneur yourself and you're a businessman, so you are well versed in the challenges that we've come to face, as well as ways in which we can combat them.
Now, those are very excellent questions. And so let me start with the question, which is about as a small business owner and also as an entrepreneur, what should I be thinking? What should I be doing? The first answer there is that, yes, you should be going into business. I think what tends to happen in this period is that fear sort of like clouds everything. So people, we speak about the foggy brain that takes place when you find yourself in a crisis. And so I would challenge you to change your mindset and don't look at the crisis as the end of opportunity. Look at the crisis as the beginning of new opportunities. And so it's about saying, okay, everything has changed. And so you had big businesses that had a hold on so many of these industries. And all of a sudden, they're floundering. All of a sudden, they don't know what to do. And so there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs. There's an opportunity for small business owners. And what I would challenge you to do is that you need to study the trends, study what is happening, listen to the government presentations about what the plans are, look at where gaps are in terms of delivering some of the services that the government has promised, or some of the services that are now no longer having someone to deal with. Let me give you just one simple example. You might be in a small business owner that's involved in accommodation or in the transport industry. Those are really heavily affected because you're no longer transporting people the way that you might have done before. So maybe you had a small shuttle service that you were using for corporate clients, and all of a sudden, all corporate clients are sitting at home working on, in their underpants and suits. So what do? Here's what you do. You shift your business. You think about no longer about transporting people, but you think about delivering goods, those essential goods that are now required, and you move as quickly as possible. You find out what the big businesses that are actually struggling to meet the demand of delivery doing, and how you can get in and be one of the service providers there. So it's about shifting and saying, okay, I might have been doing this, but maybe I need to do it differently, and then get in there as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Buhle. I love how the conversation is going on the side. And if you can just touch on the digital platforms question as well. So as a small business, is there a specific platform that I could be leveraging? Is there something specific that I could be doing? Or where should I be marketing my business after I've decided that I'm shifting my mindset and this is what I like to do? What would you suggest in terms of a platform that I can use to then market this business of mine?
So right now, a lot of people are online, and a lot of people are looking for opportunities, and a lot of people are looking for direction. There's an opportunity for all of us in this space. I know it's getting crowded. So it's getting crowded. There's Zoom for everything right now, right? So there's Zoom for how to brush your teeth and how to look after your children and all kinds of things. But that doesn't mean that you can't get in on that as well. So get in there. So use these platforms. Use the existing platforms. Facebook has been a platform that many people over the years have just used to play around and to make jokes and to connect with friends and all of that. You can still do all of that, but every now and then use that as an opportunity to reach out to people and say, hey, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. I have my little spaza here, and this. And by spaza, I don't literally mean a spaza, but I mean that I have my small operation here, and this is what I'm offering. And you'll often find that it's people who like you, people who like your values, who like the way that you are, that will promote you, that will share what you already have. And so use the social media, but don't rely too much and only on social media. Present yourself as an expert. And so that's why things like Zoom then give you an opportunity. So Zoom, we are right now on Webinar Jam, which is a great platform to engage with your existing clients and so on. So the key is to continue to be visible. Don't disappear during this crisis. Continue to be visible for people. Tell them what you're doing, share with them, and engage.
Thank you. I'm getting a lot of insights, and some of them are adapt, change, shift. The world is not going to stop and wait for us. We need to evolve our thinking and constantly think of better ways of improving as we adjust. We're slowly moving from corporate to professionals, and now we are on to you personally. A Zulu boy from KZN, now in Canada. It's not a story that you hear every day. It's a beautiful story. It's a story of progress and a story of passion evolving, but a story that many people look up to. Many people aspire to reach the levels that you have. Now a global speaker all the way from KZN. And the question that has come across is that in the impacts that are there, it is sometimes more severe if you come from a tough background or a background that does not have a lot of resources. So you can't really adapt as quickly because you don't have a lot of things available to you in order to do so. So the question is, what do you think should be done to perhaps close the technological exclusion gap that currently exists? So if I can't reach these things, what are some of the things that I can actually do as an individual? And how do we close that access gap of technology?
That's a great question. So I'll go back to what you were talking about, just in terms of my own background. And I think sometimes people, they look at the finished product and they you sort of like miss the whole point. And we make all kinds of assumptions about how a person got to where they are. And in that question, you sort of like alluded to, going to the right schools or having the right platforms and the right background. And I certainly didn't have that. I went to a rural school in northern KwaZulu-Natal in a place called Wahlabisa. And some of you have never even heard of such a place. And those who have, you know what I'm talking about. The proper bundus, And that's where I grew up. And so I didn't have the right schools or the right background and all of that stuff, but I made use of what I had. And so just to give you an example, even when I was in that school, I joined a drama group. We started a drama group in our rural school, and we're traveling around to other schools, writing plays and presenting plays and making money. So even at a very young age, even in that environment, we found a way. We were part of a debate club. And if you know how it's like often in rural schools, English and other languages, are not a strong point, but being part of a debate club really helped me to improve my speaking abilities, which has impacted my future. So I think the key here is about saying, let's not only make technology the be it and end all for success. That we have to find ways to engage people right where they are. And so people have asked, I saw another question, Are you mentoring any groups in South Africa and stuff like that? And the answer is yes. One of the organizations that I've co-founded is called Kalamba Leadership. And every week, we have a team of facilitators going into schools and doing leadership development. And we started back in 2009. And last year, in 2019, we had over 6,000 graduates that have gone through our program and then have gone on to higher education and to do different things. So and these are the schools, because for me, I really believe that you have to go to the rural schools, to the township schools, and you have to lift the mindset of our young people to say, it's not where you are that determines where you're going, it's what's in you. And so we help these young people to unleash that. So I would say let's help those we can help by providing some of the technological platforms. But actually, it's not always about the big gadgets. It's not about the iPads. It's not about the computers. It's sometimes just on the cell phones. It's helping young people access those things in the platforms that they already have. And so that's my answer. I know it's a long answer, but I think it helps people just to understand my own background and my own story in a little bit.
I think the context is important and the background as well is very inspiring. So thank you for mentioning that. There's another question about how do you cultivate and also keep yourself inspired? So where does it all come from? You're excited, you're ambitious, but there comes a time where there's specific things or circumstances that sort of deter your belief or deter you from believing that you can actually achieve what you want to do. Because we need to be honest, we plan as we may and we also dream, but then life catches you by surprise and sort of pulls you back and sticks you back, and you have certain things that you have to do in order to get yourself back where you were. So how do you cultivate that excitement and ensure that you maintain it in everything that you do, and also make sure that you don't really adhere or succumb to the setbacks that could come your way?
Excellent question, because that touches to the fourth key, which is unleashing a winning attitude. And so attitude determines everything, because attitude is it's your outlook. It's the way that you look at the world. And many people would look at my story and look at the challenges that I face and want to pity me. And I say, well, you're on the wrong path. No, you're on the wrong path there, because it is exactly these things that have made me who I am today. I often speak about the fact that I lost both my parents to HIV and AIDS. And the reason I speak about that is because, for one, we have to take away the stigma that's attached to that. This affects a lot of our people in our country. And unfortunately, back in the day, not enough was done to save people like my parents. But the second reason I tell that story is because there are so many people who have gone through the same thing and felt that was the end. And people have gone through a lot of difficult challenges in their lives. And what I took away from my challenges is that they've helped me to be stronger. They've helped me to be more resilient. When I face challenges of many kinds, and trust me, even now, I still face challenges. Coming to Canada, I shared about that in my podcast 6 years ago. I come from a place of being a successful entrepreneur in South Africa, having grown my business from one person to being an international business. And then I come to a place where, when my family moved in to Nova Scotia, to our town, we literally doubled the diversity of the town just by coming, and so I came into an environment where people couldn't even say my name, and I had to start from scratch again. And I remember I went through some really tough periods as an entrepreneur, seeing my business in South Africa struggle during that period, and then here as well. But it's a winning attitude. So when I'm talking about the winning attitude, it's about choosing how you show up. It's about choosing what you think. It's about choosing how you see yourself. Who you are is not determined by your circumstances or things that are happening around you. Who you are remains the same, even in the midst of the challenge that you face. And so when you choose to have that winning attitude, that belief in yourself, and say, yeah, I know I'm going through it right now. This is rough. This is tough. But I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of doing. And I'm going to get up. I'm going to put a smile on, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get back to that position again. And it's not easy. So make sure that you're continuously reading and reading things that are inspiring you, that you are continuously being connected to people who uplift you. So that winning attitude is everything.
Winning attitude. I'm definitely going to sneak this one in because I think it speaks a lot about what you've mentioned now. And it's a question of confidence. The question says that you speak a lot about greatness. I know it's in the podcast. And guys, to all of you out there, the podcast is still out. You can definitely check it out. And Buhle again goes in depth into the 5 core points that he's mentioning right now. So please go and watch that and leave your comments as well. So the question was about confidence. Speaking of ungreatness, I have to believe that I'm great. I have to understand that I'm great and believe it in order to start walking on the path of achieving what I want to achieve. The question is, if I'm not as confident for some reason or other, how do I build on that confidence as an individual before I set on this journey?
I think that's a very good question. The key, confidence is one of those things that, again, is touched to that be who you be that I spoke about. Because when you believe in yourself, when you own your story, and this is why be who you be is important. Because when you're walking around feeling sorry for yourself, for example, when you're walking around thinking, I'm not good enough, my background is not that great, when you're walking around feeling sorry for yourself, confidence can never come. And so you have to start by saying, okay, I need to own my story. I need to own who I am. I need to embrace who I am. And I might not have chosen my story, but it is who I am. And it is what makes me who I am. And so for me, that meant I have to be able to share some of the things that I've shared even on this call today about my own background, about my own story, not trying to project something that I'm not. And I think for many people, the biggest reason that people are not able to be confident is because they spend all of their time. It takes a lot of energy to be fake. It's exhausting to try and please everybody, to try and act like someone that you're not. And it's such a wasted time and wasted energy, because all of the time you're walking around doubting yourself and always feeling that you will never reach. And so that's why I say start with be who you be. Embrace yourself, embrace your story, embrace your background, embrace your history, and then embrace what you do have, your skills, your talents, develop them. So that's why I say don't just embrace who you are, but go on to embrace who you can be. So that speaks about mastery. Many people think they can just achieve greatness by following a few tips that someone shares with them through some program. I don't think so. I think that you do have to go about the work of mastering your skills and your talents. And so that means if you feel and if you know that this is where you can excel, this is the area that you can excel in, take the time, practice, do what needs to be done. And I often speak about practice, and often people will say, but others are not letting me have an opportunity and all of that stuff. Forget them, go around them, practice and start where you are, start small and so on and so forth. But practice, 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 and you will find that the more you do what you love, the more you get better at it and the more confident you become.
Thank you. This question you're going to find very interesting because it's coming from a point of, so I've done all of this, I've unleashed my greatness and I managed to make it out, but I didn't stay there. And at Velocity Club, we deal with a lot of young professionals who come from different backgrounds where access was an issue and now access is available, but there are then other challenges that come with access. Maybe finances weren't available, but now finances are there, and we find ourselves having to now deal with the challenges that come with actually having those finances and that access. So the question is, many people grew up from impoverished backgrounds and villages where financial opportunities were unheard of. But as soon as they achieve them, they then don't have the financial knowledge and the financial literacy to shift accordingly into what they want to achieve. So the question is, how did you manage that financial literacy gap, having come from Guahlabisa and KZN, and not knowing much about perhaps how to use your income or how to even save for your businesses? How did you bridge that gap to then be comfortable with where you are and move yourself forward?
Well, get married. No, I'm joking. If you're married, someone's got to be spending your money for you and making sure. No, that's just a joke. But a big a big aspect of really getting this right is that key, which is about living your values. So determine your values beforehand. What is it that is important to you? Many people, I've seen this too many times in South Africa. I've seen this too many times with young professionals. Someone works really hard, comes from a really tough background. Then they get their degree and they get their first professional job in a corporate space. And all of a sudden, they're getting in a month more money than they had in a whole year in their family. And a number of things happen. One is that you get the ones who splurge on themselves. They buy the biggest car that's more expensive than the flat that they're renting, or the place that they're renting. They get the biggest car, they get this, and they get that, and so on and so forth. The reason people fall for these traps is because people actually didn't set out values for themselves beforehand. What is important to me? What do I? So if your value is giving back, for example, that's going to be important in how you spend your money. If your value is being sustainable, I'm just using some of the key values that are out there. So if your value is that you want to leave a legacy for the next generation, then you're going to be thinking more about investing and about putting money away and making sure. So values play a key role in how we manage our finances. So how did I do it? To go back to that question, I think for me is that I learned the hard way, because I didn't just automatically go from 0 to 100. I had a lot of years where I was doing what I can do. I was unleashing my greatness and I was working hard, but the return wasn't coming as quickly as I'd hoped. And so I learned to budget. I learned to invest. I learned to think about the future, and I learned to think about the next day. I would challenge all of us to sit down, work out what our own values are. Don't try to impress the neighbors. Don't try to impress anybody else but yourself and your own goals about where you want to go and what you want to do. And then a big part, I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit long here, but I think this is important. And then a big part of this is coming from our Black cultures in South Africa. We do often are faced with the challenge that when you succeed, it's not you alone that succeeds. All of a sudden, there's uncles you've never met in your life, and they're like, "We raised you," and your success is not only yours; it's everybody else's success. That's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. It can be a bad thing if you, are not very careful about how, in helping others, you're not jeopardizing yourself. So be clear about, what percentage of your budget is going to be used to uplift other members of your family and to do those things. But it is important. Think about it, but don't just do it without thinking or without planning for your future.
Okay. Planning is a word we use very often in our environment as well. So you're definitely speaking our language. Another question is, so we are on this sort of treadmill to succeed and to hustle and to thrive, but we get tired. And
Yeah.
the question is, how do you deal with burnout?
Mm.
And advice would you give to young people joining us today who are busy unleashing their greatness and giving everything they have to the goals and the things that they want to achieve? How do they deal with being so burnt out with the long hours and the work and everything else that comes with it? How do you deal with burnout?
I think it's very important to realize when you are being burnt out. I think the biggest challenge for many of us is that by the time we realize, it's usually too late. When your own children sort of like don't know you anymore, that's a bit too late. So you have to be thinking about how do you lead a balanced life long before you get to burnout. So I would say that I've had opportunities. No, that sounds bad, but I've been at that position where I have had to deal with burnout, and it's not fun. It's not good. Um, so the way that I dealt with it personally is that then I just went back to looking at all areas of my life and then asking myself just specific questions like how much what are the percentages of my time am I giving to different things in my life. What percentage am I giving to work? What percentage am I giving to family? What percentage I'm giving to my spiritual growth? Because for me, that's important. What percentage am I giving to my physical well-being? And I know right now during COVID-19, this is a big question we need to be asking, because I think we're going to come out with more, kilos than we went into COVID-19. What percentage am I giving to my physical well-being? What percentage am I giving to these things? And when you do this kind of wheel, so take a wheel and then sort of like carve out. And if your wheel, the part that says work, is over, a third of that, you're already doing something wrong. You need to stop and you need to say, okay, I need to dial some things back here. And so when you do that wheel and you carve out the percentage of time that you're giving to different things, and you see that there's something that is amiss, you need to correct. Obviously, work is always going to take more of that wheel. We need to survive. But if it's taking too much, it starts to eat into these other areas of your life, you are going to suffer. And if you are not there to produce, then there's not going to be success for you.
I agree. So balance is very important. Making sure that you have an honest conversation with yourself and that you keep it balanced as well. Balanced in the things that are very important about you. I see another comment about balance coming through as well. So take us back to 15-year-old Buhle.
I see that question.
Somebody wants to place you in the dusty bundus of Kwahlabisa in KZN. And the question is, what would you tell that young man right now?
Hmm. Um, I think I would say to that young man, keep dreaming big. It does work out in the end. Dreams do come true. Keep working hard. I would say to that young man, you know, ignore the sort of like the haters. I don't like talking about haters, but I know that all of us in our lives, we have those people that say to us, we're jela, you think you're better than everybody else because you are trying to improve yourself, and because you're going to the library and taking out books when the rest of us are smoking around the corner and doing other things. I would say to that young man, yeah, it's worth it. Stay the course. Do what you need to do, and so on. And and looking back, I do remember, I didn't share this story, but the school that I went to didn't have books, and I'm talking about textbooks. And I remember we had to share sometimes 10 students to one textbook. And you know how difficult that would make having to study for exams and things like that. And would have to come together over weekends and do all kinds of things just to be able to succeed. And I'm not unique. I don't think I'm special. All of us, a lot of us dealt with this. But I remember that it was when I was in standard 8. Yeah, that's how old I am.
I told them not to let your youthful face fool them.
uh, that was the first time we had a library in our school, and it was a cupboard of books that had been donated to my school. And out of over 1,000 students, only 5 of us went into that library to take out the books. And I remember I used to love the Guinness Book of Records, and to read all about the different records around the world. That's when I got introduced to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and transported to a totally different world. I loved reading about traveling and about business and all of that. Here I was still in Sabisa. I was still walking to school. I was still fetching water from the river. I was still, studying by candlelight, but I was being transported into a different world, because in that very environment, I seized an opportunity of a lifetime, in the lifetime of that opportunity. While others were focusing on other things, I was using that opportunity. If you had told me that I was going to become an author, that I would write 6 books, I would have laughed at you, because of where I was. But because of those small steps that I took at that time, I am where I am today. And I think even now, I still have to continue to do the same thing,
I think there's a lot of talk about keep calm, which I think, as much as you are saying it to the 15-year-old version of you, I think we all need to hear it, and we all need to believe it sometimes. It's going to be okay. I think it's something we need to hear as adults. It's something that we need to hear as we go on as well, that keep calm, the end goal is near. It's not as far as we imagine it to be, and it's not as untangible as we sometimes think that it is. There's lots of other questions coming through.
I love
We've got
it.
left, guys. 10 minutes left. But I want to take this question because we don't often speak about the failures that we go through. The failure story is not as hot selling as the success one. And this question is talking about what is something that you can reflect on, that you haven't done well, and that you would have done better had you known better.
Oh, I will point everybody to my LinkedIn profile, and I'll point them to an article that I wrote in 2015, and I speak about unleashing your greatness beyond failure, and 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 that story, was so personal and so hard to share. When I shared it, and when I shared the article, the positive response that I got from people was just overwhelming. I shared about how, how after working so hard, I almost lost everything in terms of my business. And entrepreneurs will know this. If you're an entrepreneur, you have a story of how you can lose everything that you've worked for just overnight. And often it's just by a simple thing where you get excited about an opportunity that you sell the whole farm. And that was my story, where I had an opportunity, and I put so much at stake in terms of all that I'd worked for, my whole business, and in terms of this opportunity, that it almost sunk me completely. And it took me a long time to come back from that position. And it was very difficult. It was very painful. And it was very lonely, a space. It's very interesting how when you go through difficult, when you are succeeding, when you're climbing, how many people are there to cheer you on. But when things go the other way, it's almost interesting how then some people almost seem to salivate and enjoy what you're, the difficulties that you're going through. So it's a great article for you to read. We don't have the time for me to tell you the ins and outs of it, but safe to say that I've been there. I've been at a point where I was having panic attacks because of the financial challenges that I was facing based on business. And when you're in business, sometimes it's better to be at a certain point in your life financially, because when you hit a difficulty, it's a couple of thousand rands or something like that. And when you're at a different point in your life, in your business, and you hit difficulty, and you're talking about millions, and you're like, oh my goodness, how do I get out of this? And so I was there, and I made it all the way back. And I had to start. I had to build again. I had to go through all of that. So what I'm saying is that it's not always just going to be up and up. There are going to be challenges right now. The next few months, a lot of us, even myself included, are going to see some difficulties. So let's brace ourselves for that. Let's make sure that we're doing the right things, that we're doing what we can, that we are not making silly mistakes, and that we are going to come out of this stronger by shifting the way that we think, by seizing the opportunities that are there and creating the future.
Thanks a lot. A lot of positive comments coming through, as well as questions. There's one that I would like us, I think, in the few minutes that we have left, to touch on this one. And it says that there's the danger of a single story. If
Yes.
you've heard of, yes. The danger of a single story. How do you think young South Africans can change that story? South Africans like yourself and myself, to actually make sure that it's the ideal story that they want to. I think it's somewhere where we can close. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be inspired after listening to you to actually unleash that greatness that they now believe they have. But how do we change our story and start and begin?
I think that's an excellent way to end in terms of our engagement. I think in terms of the single story that we've seen over and over about South Africa, one of the single stories that we have to change, and I have to say this because sitting here in Canada, some people then are thinking, oh, the way to succeed is to leave South Africa. And I want to refute that. And I want to say that is not the truth. The reason that I am here is because my wife is from here, and we decided that for a number of years we wanted to spend time on this side of the world and to connect with the side of the family. And we're coming back to South Africa. That is our plan. Our plan was to come back at the end of this year. Given the fact that we can't travel, that might have to change a little bit and then push it out a little bit further. But I want us to get rid of that single story that, oh, to be successful, you need to leave South Africa, you need to go somewhere else. Yes, you might have to grow your business beyond South African borders and travel the world and do amazing things. I don't refute that. We have to do it. But there's great opportunity in South Africa. And so if we want to be successful, we've got to be able to do it right there. And so that single story needs to change. Another thing that we have to think about when it comes to the single stories that we need to change as South Africans, I think it's this whole thing that that you have to have the right background and that you have to be from a certain connections and all of that in order for you to succeed. Go around those barriers that people put in your way. Find ways to go around them. If they're not giving you an opportunity, create an opportunity somewhere else. And it's very interesting how the same people who would not let you come in through the door are usually the ones that come back now with a marching band begging you to come through the door and willing to pay you a lot more money to do it. And so don't allow that story. Oh, I can't get in because I don't have the right connections, and those who are there are locking the door for me. Go around the door. Find another way. Make it, and you can do it.
Thank you very much, Buhle, for joining us. It's been very insightful and we've learned a lot. Guys, the conversation has not stopped. Please continue to put your comments on the videos. Follow us and you'll find Buhle on LinkedIn as well. He's available to connect. And you can find that article that he was referring to. You can find the article he was referring to as well. It's goodbye for now, but we'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you for joining us. Please look out for communication from us as well as we continue the conversation offline.